Hey everyone, I just have a little story to share with you. I typically don't like to talk about these things, but I do think it's important to understand because, like I said, I think the struggle with food is more than food. It's an emotional, mental thing. And it's really not about food because we've seen people lose weight through all different kinds of things. It's more of a mental thing. Than it is ever about food. So, kind of this one is like, what is the world coming to? And please, please, please listen to this video. This helped me so much through different things that I think this could be just what you need to hear today. And if you have faith that this is going to help you, then I want you to listen to this whole thing. Don't forget to like, share, and comment if this does help you. But I want to talk about the struggles of maybe you're having a little bit of fear or anxiety, or maybe you're hoarding just a little bit of bitterness towards something, just a little bit of kind of like a righteous anger that people have kind of hurt you, and you're a little upset about it in some different ways. Maybe it's just even you're trying to grow your YouTube channel and you're watching several people who are like you and they're having more success than you, but you're working harder or just as hard, or maybe some things aren't going quite right at home, or things aren't going right with your husband or your kids, or work is getting a little frustrating and it's adding up on you. And so I just want to share a little story with you to maybe help you see and realize how to handle these things. And I have a lot of people who struggle with anxiety and on anxiety meds, and people are shocked when they find out I'm not on any medications. And it almost sounds like I should be. But I want to tell you guys something. I'm a very, very happy person from the inside. I don't just show this on my face. It's not just I choose to be happy. It's I actually experience joy, and I'm a joyful person. And this is probably my top quality that people always notice about me, is how happy I am, truly. And I want to share with you guys how I do that. It's extremely important. So to share this is I have to tell you that once in my life, I was a very, very bitter person. And so it started off when I was young. I was a really happy-go-lucky child. But about 5 years old, my parents got a divorce. And I was on and off with living with my abusive, alcoholic, drug addict father. And he was very verbally abusive to me. He was never physically abusive to me. He was towards my brother, but never me. But I had to deal with a lot of anger that he directed at me, telling me I wasn't good enough, lots of things like that. And I think at those ages of like 5 and 6, it's very traumatizing. And I was the oldest, so sometimes he'd leave us alone to go party from 5 o'clock till 6 o'clock in the morning. They'd come back, him and his my stepmom, his wife. I don't really call her my stepmom, but I was trying to think of what else to call her. And all my siblings were younger, so I was kind of in charge of us. So a lot of times I had to feed us, and I'd learned how to cook when I was 5, just because I needed to make sure that there was food on the table for us. And I could only cook eggs and toast, so that's what I made. We lived in Sturgis around the biker rally, so I would walk us up and down the streets during the biker rally and looking at the bikes. How nothing ever happened to us, I don't know. So I learned to have a lot of fear in my life just because I couldn't trust in my dad. And my mom, going through an abusive relationship, wasn't a very good person at the time herself. And so she was very verbally abusive, and also she was there physically, but not emotionally for me. And I was really looking for some inner self-esteem, because I still remember this at 5 years old, like trying to show her a picture that I drew. And she's like, yeah, that's great, Chantel. And would be busy doing it. And I was like really trying to look for some recognition. I was trying to find anything in my life where I was maybe good at something. And I was just always searching for this. And then at about 6 or 7, my birth father moved away to Missouri. So at 7, I thought I was never going to see him again. And then all of a sudden, my mom started dating. And then there were these men coming in her home, and I didn't want anything to do with them. I didn't trust them. I didn't trust my dad. And I also wanted to love my dad, but I also hated him. And I was starting school and I loved it, but I was really struggling there. It took us till about second grade for them to realize that I had dyslexia. And then my mom decided she wanted to move me to a new town. And as you guys know, at young ages, it's really hard on kids. And so I was struggling, and she was moving with her boyfriend at the time, and I didn't want anything to do with him. And he moved in, and I just wasn't ready for it. I didn't want anyone else in our home. It was just kind of me and my brother and my mom, and I kind of wanted it that way. And it was about that time at third grade, they discovered at school that I was very, very, very behind. And so I was struggling at school. I was struggling at home. I didn't have a place of an identity. You know, my birth father, whom I had loved, had like abandoned me, basically. I just was struggling all over. And about that time, my mom started to think I had a weight problem. So she also started putting me on diets and weighing me all the time. And I was struggling with all this stuff. And then I actually started to learn how to read in fourth grade. So I was extremely behind. And so I was just struggling all the time. So I was in special ed. And then at school, I had a really bad teacher. So that was the first time I started to think about suicide. I just didn't think my life was going to get any better. I was struggling so much, and I just didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. I started to hate to be home. I threatened my mom that I was going to leave home, and I was going to move in with my grandmother at about 4th, 5th grade. I was getting really tired of it. I started having early signs of puberty, so I started getting really bad acne. I wasn't feeling good. I was getting ignored all the time at home. My mom favored my brother, so she spent a lot more time with him, and he was way more sensitive than I was. And I was very strong and independent, and I was so angry I wouldn't allow my mom to hug me or like kiss me or tell me that she loved me. I wouldn't let her do that. And I hated my stepdad, and I tried to, he wasn't my stepdad at the time, he is now. And I tried to do everything I could to push him out of my life. And I just got so disappointed that I just didn't believe life could get any better. And about that time, my mom went to my doctor and secretly put me on antidepressants. Little did we know it was actually because I was having health problems, which I can get into later. But I mean, I was just getting bitter. It was hard. And then I got to see my birth father again. He randomly showed up one day, and I realized I did love him. And then he left again 2 days later, and I didn't see him for about 10 years again after that. So it really played with my heart. And I think then I really did turn to food because my mom kept making me believe I had an eating problem. I then developed one. I started starving myself. And then I would binge. I would never purge, but I'd do binging and starving to kind of punish myself for not being good enough, for not being loved, and just being really, really bitter. And I just learned to hate. And then one day I got so fed up with my mom. She said something, and I was struggling at school really bad at the time. I mostly had D's and F's. And I tried really hard at school. I really did. I wanted to be successful there. I just wasn't. And I told my mom I was leaving home that day. And I remember packing my bags. I was going to go live with my grandma. And I would have done it too. But I was ready. And then my stepdad pulled me aside. And he said, you know, what's going on? You know, I said, well, I'm really upset. And he's like, well, I'd like you to share it with me. And I didn't know that I trusted him. But I was so fed up and so disappointed with my life and who I was, and there was just nothing good about me. I was made fun of at school. I wasn't smart. I was struggling at home. I just didn't see anything else to live for, really, except for I didn't want to be like my birth father. And so I talked to him, and he said, I'd really like you to stay. And I was thinking, really? Because I was so mean to him, and I was so hurtful to him that he helped me change my heart. And that day I let him in, and he actually became my father and I started calling him Dad, and I knew that I loved him. I didn't know if I loved my mom, and I was angry with my brother, but I started to develop a relationship with my stepdad. And he was just there all the time. If I was sick, he was there. He showed up to all my games, all my stuff for school, and I'm getting emotional. He started to show me true love, what love does for people. And so he started to change my heart a little bit. And so my life at home did get a little bit better, and I stayed because of my stepdad. And it wasn't because of my mom, it was because of my stepdad. And they did get married when I was in junior high. And then I was starting to figure out life. I was getting made fun of for being fat. I was just a little chubby, but I was getting made fun of. People were picking on me for it. I was still struggling in school a lot, having a lot of trouble. And it just seemed like things were starting to turn a corner. And then I started getting really sick all of a sudden. And then I just was sick all the time. I was tired. And then my mom thought it was really because I was getting overweight. But I had no energy. I was just sick all the time. And then some other bad things happened in school. But I'm not going to get into those. But it was pretty bad. Pretty bad. Got involved in drinking a little bit, but some bad things happened there, trying to look for love in wrong places, obviously. And then my junior year, I noticed, I told my mom, like, something's really not right. Something's really, really wrong with me. And it's not that my mom didn't love me. I just didn't know how to accept her love, and she didn't know how to love me. We just didn't get each other. So that's when we found out I had developed a blood clot to my liver, and my doctors prepared me, like, you're in a struggle for your life, kid. Like, they thought I was going to have a liver transplant, all these things. I missed 6 months of school. 6 months of my junior year, I was out because I had surgery. They cut me open. It's the second largest surgery they do. I spent months in the hospital, and so this struggling again. I'm like, come on, like, where's my break? And I just struggled, and I just was fighting for my life. And then after that, things started to get better again. I started to lose weight. I felt better. At the end of my senior year, I could start to feel all those symptoms coming back on, and I'm struggling telling these doctors, and he's like, it's all in your head. It's all in your head. You're fine now. It's just because you've been struggling for so long. So sure enough, I graduated. I go back up to the University of Minnesota, because that's the only place that would take me. Wyoming wouldn't even see me, or South Dakota. God. So I had to go to Minnesota just to get seen in the peds doctors, and they're like, yeah, you developed another blood clot to your liver. And they wanted me to go on disability. I'm like, this can't be my life. This can't be my life. And I was just so used to fighting, just fighting for everything, fighting for my life, fighting for all this stuff. And it was another fight, and so I had to get put on blood thinners, and I reacted to them. So what I got was pain-induced syndrome. So it made it so bad that I got so weak. I couldn't hold my clutch into my car during a light, or my leg would give out. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't walk. I had restless leg syndrome. You couldn't tap me like this, and I'd just cringe in pain. I just looked sickly. I was bloated. I could barely make it to class. I couldn't remember things. I'd lived in the same place for over 10 years, and I'd miss my turn to my house. I live out of town. Like, there's only one turn. Like, where else do you go? So I was missing that. And I can tell you, I was just ready to give up on life. I'm like, there's just no good in this. Like, why am I working so hard? Why am I struggling this hard for everything? And, college was a struggle, because I wanted to go to college. And then my doctors, I got so sick, they're like, you need to take a leave. Like, this may be your life. Like, you should be on disability. And again, I'm just a fighter. That's just who I am. And I said, absolutely not. I am not quitting. I've come this far. And so they're like, well, you're going to need to move. So, of course, they tell me I can move to Florida, Minnesota, or Washington. So that's how I ended up here in Washington. I said, all right, I'm moving to Washington, but I'm not quitting school. And, of course, I did have to quit school. I went up here for 2.5 years, and then I had to drop out because then I ended up with internal bleeding. And then for the last 3 years, I had internal bleeding and 3 times, and banding of bleeding from my throat and my stomach, and all these things that just kept going wrong in my life or quitting. Then I started my own business, and I just fighting all the time. So guys, why am I here today? Why am I so happy when my whole life has been a struggle? And honestly, it's because I can tell you, I know God. And it's because finally, after my first episode of internal bleeding, I realized I can't do this anymore. I was trying to do this all on my own. And this is not my salvation story. I'm not going to get into that today. But where I finally found happiness is I realized you can't count on life. You can't. All you've got is you. And you can be happy with who you are. And to fear all these things, I was supposed to die like 3 times by now. And what I realized, that every day I got to live was actually a blessing, and that no one got to determine my happiness. I realized that's the one thing no one could take from me, is my joy in life and my love for life. And that, yep, it's a struggle. I struggle every day. I'm still struggling, still got my issues, and you do too. But, don't let bitterness, don't let other people rule your life. Don't let them dictate how you get to live. That I wanted no one to be in control of my happiness. That through all that, somehow I have found a way to still be happy. And this is a genuine happiness. I'm not just saying I'm happy or choosing to smile. I have peace in my life. Guys, I love being home. I love my walks. I love my coffee in the morning. I love getting up early morning and I sit and I read my devotions. And it's not because I want to be like, oh God, just pour into me. It's because I know how easy it is for people to steal that joy from your life, and how easy it is to not be happy. That I want that. So take the time, find the joy in your life.